discipline. Something as simple as food and eating. It's not about your body as much as it is about your mind. It's getting command of your mind to be able to choose actions that are in your own best interest. Every day we are choosing that's not in our own best interest. So if the world is attacking you and the world wants to fight you and the world's trying to hold you down, so you're going to kick yourself in the balls? So you're going to stop yourself from getting what you dream. And I think the word discipline has kind of gotten a bad name. We think about it in terms of punishment. I'm not talking about discipline in that way. I'm talking about discipline in the sense that you forego immediate pleasure for the exchange of the definition of self-love. That when you say that you love yourself, that means that you have behavior towards yourself that is loving. Self-discipline is the center of all material success. You cannot win the war against the world if you can't win the war against your own mind.
You're listening to Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jams.
Good morning. We are back for another week. I am your host. This is Stephanie A. Wynn with the Power Plug Radio. Jumpstart your business with Stephanie A. Wynn. It is May the 15th. Can you believe it? We're halfway through this month. Listen, time isn't waiting for nobody, and it is definitely ticking. So, how have you all been this week? Before we get started, we have a really, really good guest today. Donna Lindsey is going to be on the second half sharing, talking about self-love. But this week's topic we're going to talk about is the importance of self-care. I truly believe I wanted to kind of take away from the business tips this week because I want to focus on us individually. Because if you're not good personally, how can you be good in your business? You're not going to be good in your business. So, I mean, we can fake it till we make it, but you know how that goes, right? So let's talk about this weather. It's 75 right now in St. Petersburg, Florida. And I'm freezing because there's a little wind that came out of nowhere. So it's windy here. It's sunny and windy. The high is going to be 86. The low is going to be 66. So listen, I'm super excited about this sunshine today, and we got to just be good to ourselves. So let's get into the show. We're back. What have you all done this week for self-care day? Like, have you taken time out to love on yourself more? Like, love you unconditionally, unapologetically. Have you done that this week? Yes? No? Maybe so? Okay, so I want to give a shout out to all of the listeners on powerplugradio.com, all of the listeners on Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube. Shout out to everybody who is supporting the show. And hey, like I said, today the topic is the importance of self-care. So we're going to jump right in. But before we start, I always like to start with the renewing of your mind. To truly be anything or to get involved in anything that you venture out on, right? It starts with the renewing of your mind. What I mean by that, I mean, like, we know that starting a business, it can be scary and sometimes it can be exciting at the same time. But before you start the business, you got to have the mindset to do this very thing, right? And so what does that mean when I say renewing of the mind? I mean that you have to have a growth mindset. A lot of times we have this fixed way of thinking mindset, like a fixed way of thinking that, success isn't happening for us quick enough. We aren't getting where we need to be right now. We want that microwavable success and we don't want to put in the work. Or we self-sabotage everything. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen for me. I'm never, I'm tired of failing. I failed before and it didn't work out, So we don't want to have that kind of mindset when we're building our business. Does that make sense? Listen at Talisha. Talisha said that she got a super relaxing facial this week at FaceTime Beauty Lounge in St. Pete. It was awesome. That's what's up. That is what's up. Listen, we got to take care of ourselves. So let's get back to this growth mindset. So the growth mindset, that's the person who is always looking to succeed. They don't give up. They continue to push forward even through adversity. I made a post this week and I was talking about, the things that they don't tell you about entrepreneurship is, you hear all of the stories, I was homeless and then I was a billionaire, but they don't tell you about the valley, like that valley, that part where it's just nothing is happening. It seems like you're working and working. Nothing is happening. Nothing is moving. You're not getting any sales. Nobody's buying from you. The sales have died down. They don't talk about that. They don't talk about if you had to file bankruptcy, you lost something, you lost a child, the meat of it. Right. So we need to have that growth mindset. You're going to go through adversities with entrepreneurship. Yes, we know that. But having a growth mindset is going to help you propel and push forward in this very thing that you believe in. Right. So let's get to moving on the topics, because I have some really good tips today about the importance of self-care and what you need to do to help you with, stress, and that help you get past, the mindset of the overwhelm. Okay. So let's talk about that. So what is self-care? Self-care is where you're taking time out to see about you. That's something put in simplest terms. You're taking time out of your schedule to do something for yourself. We're so busy taking care of everybody. We got to take care of the house. We got to feed our tribe, our village, right? We have to make sure everybody else is straight. But we're so busy taking care of everybody and all these other things that we lose sight of ourselves. And so what happens is you either are going to get depressed, you're going to recluse, you're going to get depressed, and then you're going to detach. And then you're going to be in a pickle, as my cousin would say. So let's talk about these things. How do you maintain self-care? Let me give you some examples of self-care. Self-care is like when you're stressed, what do? Do you react, or do you take a deep breath when you feel the stress coming on? Sometimes we have to just take a step back and take a deep breath. Say, you know what? I'm not going to allow this to, overcome, take over me, this very thing. So I had to learn how to channel my stress with Crohn's disease, because stress is the culprit of flare-ups for people with IBD issues, right? So I had to remove any and everything, including my kids and family, any and everything that brought me stress. And anybody that has children, how they can't, grown adults. Sometimes they make you want to catch a charge, I guess, sometimes. No, but sometimes, you just need to just back up and regroup and refocus. Not allow this thing to take over. So let's talk about this. Some self-care strategies for managing stress. Number 1, remain socially connected. Like, what I mean by that is after you've taken care of all of the people in your life, family. Like, so if you're married, wives and husbands, we take care of each other and the kids and the household. Like, you want to still remain socially connected to your friends or the people that matter the most, right? So set time aside every week. This is so vital. This is why I talk about, what did you do for a self-care day? I always talk about this because it's so important. It's so important that we take time every week for ourselves. If it's a walk in the park, go to the beach, sit out by the beach and just think, relax, right? Number 2, you want to maintain a healthy lifestyle. How do you do that? By exercising often, right? Eating a healthy, having a healthy diet. So eating healthy food. And I know sometimes it's hard to maintain a healthy diet because, stuff happens. And then we have getting enough sleep. Now, I want to talk about this. I use that one for last because as entrepreneurs, sleep. You go to bed with your mind full of thoughts. You wake up with your mind full of thoughts. And it seems like it's been, you haven't gotten any sleep, maybe 2 hours worth of sleep. So we have to really, truly think about these things. We have to do these very things. So we're going to for self-care strategies for managing stress. Number 1, remain socially connected. You're going to set aside time every week. Number 2, you're going to maintain a healthy lifestyle by exercising often, eating healthy foods, and getting enough sleep. What does that look like? Like sleep what? So remember, you can make time for yourself. Make time for yourself. Take power naps. Power naps are the best, right? So let's talk even further. What does it look like when you're not taking care of yourself? Are you all over the place? You running ragged? Your mind, your thoughts is all over the place. You can't focus. I got to do this, and this. And you're running, and you're getting nowhere. Right? Nothing is getting done. That's that valley I was talking about. They don't talk about that. And see, when you're in the valley, you have so much on your plate and you have to get so much stuff done and there's just not enough time in a day. You're time poor, as one of my friends would say. I'm just time poor, Stephanie. You're time poor. You're short on time. So what are we going to do about that? Self-care, meaning also you got to manage your time more effectively. Set aside time for you. All right. So let me know if these tips help you guys. You think these tips are really good because, like I said, there's a variety of forms of, managing your stress levels. But one of the things that I want to talk about too is practicing relaxation, practicing how to relax. Like, do you know how to relax? Are you always, Chandra, the executive producer of the show, said she don't know how to relax. Like, you really have to relax. Don't be so tense all the time. And I think it has to do with what I said last week. The topic I talked about was delegating. We have so much going on as entrepreneurs that we don't know how to delegate. So we're always uptight. We're always tense. We can't seem to get it together. We got so much going on, but we got to relax. We have to learn to relax. How do you do that? Take a walk in the park. Go to the beach. Leave your phone in the car, but go to the beach and just relax. Yes. Relax. Take a day of the week that's for you only. Nobody else. If someone texts you about business, don't even respond. Let them know your day's off and stick to that. Stick to that. Really, I'm serious. I'm so serious. Like, you have to relax and take time and how to do that, you have to take time for yourself. I'm so serious. Like, listen, our guest, Donna Lindsay, she is going to drop some jewels on you all today, because it also is centered around self-care. We're going to talk about self-love too, and how we need to love on ourselves more. More importantly, we have to believe in ourselves, because I believe that once you tap into who you are, where you are, and what it is that you need to do, trust and believe me, it's gonna start. You're gonna start saying, man, why haven't I been relaxing more? Why haven't I been going for walks in the park? Remember, time is of the essence. We're already in May of 2021. Like, time is just, we're in the 5th month. By the way, can you guys believe I just have some news? I got to share this news for you all this week. So I ventured out on podcasting, not by, I need to do a podcast, but the Let's Talk Business with Stephanie A. Wynn, we have 1,000 subscribers, 1,000 downloads, and we're international now. So what I did was I decided to relax on that. Like, yes, I can relax. I cannot be so tense about, what am I? No, I'm relaxing. Yeah. Because once you relax, everything is going to start flowing more freely. Like, it's more freeing. You know what I'm saying? It's more freeing for you. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to have our guest, Donna Lindsey, self-love strategist, author, speaker, educator, and entrepreneur. We'll be back.
You're listening to Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jams.
Hey, Miss Donna.
Hi.
All right, we're gonna get back into it, okay? So
Okay, sounds good.
all righty.
All right.
You're listening to Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jams.
We are back. We are back for the second half of the show, the Jumpstart Your Business with Stephanie A. Wynn, brought to you by Power Plug Radio. So I want to give a shout out to our online listeners, powerplugradio.com, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live. Oh, and I forgot to mention our apps, Apple and Alexa. So for those who are listening, thank you all for tuning in. So we have a special guest today. Super a wonderful person. I mean, she is really phenomenal. Miss Donna Lindsey. She is the founder and CEO of Donna Lindsey Coaching and Consulting, LLC, and is nationally and internationally known as the self-love strategist. For the last 15 years, she has instrumentally engaged individuals, groups, and organizations in empowerment sessions using principles of love to enhance and improve their overall performance in all areas of their lives. Donna specializes in self-love activation. Her strategic approach to individual empowerment, group coaching, and organizational restoration has positioned her to become pursued as a coach, consultant, and speaker. Now, we're going to bring Miss Lindsay on and we're going to get right to it. Welcome, Miss Donna. Introduce yourself to the audience.
Good morning, Stephanie. How are you today?
I am well. All is well. Thank you for coming on today.
Listen, thank you so much for having me. I count this a privilege and an honor to have conversation with you today in the midst of your audience.
Yes.
Thank you for that warm welcome and just, providing my information. A lot of people often ask, what is a self-love strategist? So you defined it clearly and concisely, and I just so appreciate you for that.
Well, I just want to give a proper introduction, but I know that you're going to provide the audience with, some tips about self-love. I know that the topic of discussion today is the importance of self-care, but before we could give ourselves self-care, we have to love ourselves, right? So,
Absolutely.
And I want to talk about your newly released book. You guys, Donna is an author, and she's just she's amazing. She is so amazing. She will definitely get you moving in the right direction toward loving yourself more unapologetically, like she says. So tell the audience, Donna, tell us about, self-love. And I know you do a lot of workshops. You do many workshops on, self-love and, love me first, the masterclass. So tell the audience about how do we love ourselves more?
That's such a great question. And the process that I ultimately take individuals, couples, groups, and organizations through is a 5-step process. And it starts with acknowledgement. The first thing that we actually need to be able to do is to acknowledge how we see ourselves. When you look at yourself in the mirror, really, really look at yourself. What is it that you see? Not what you present to the world, not what you show on the job or when you go to church, you just have on the perfect smile and you're blessed and highly favored. When you are alone in that room, in that space, in your car, what is it that you see? When you listen to yourself speak, what is it that you're hearing? When you are interacting with other individuals, what is it that you're noticing? Oftentimes, do we pay that close attention to ourselves? And so ultimately for me, one of the first things that I do is to teach people how to acknowledge what is in operation, what is going on, what is it that they see, what is it that they hear, what is it that they find themselves demonstrating or speaking, and really familiarize themselves with who they are or who they've allowed their traumas, their hurts, their pains, and their life experiences to cause them to become.
Gotcha. Wow. That is awesome. So I want to break down one of the, you said something that really stuck out was like, who are you?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And a lot of times more than 99% of the time, when we're trying to figure this out, life, sometimes we just don't know who we are and what our purpose is. Right. So what's one thing that what is one of your, how can I put this? What do you think is the reason why we don't know who we are and where we are?
Wow. Because, becoming one with who you are, learning who you are requires humility. It requires you to not only see all of the great things that everyone, shares with you about yourself, but it also requires you to really take a look at some of those things that aren't great about you. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, especially in modern society where everyone's looking for a heart and a thumbs up and a hug and I care, and everyone's looking for the positive, and there's nothing wrong with that. I live through a positive lens, but we also have to be willing to really take a look at what's not working right within us. Mm-hmm. Are we mean? Mm-hmm. Are we nasty to people? Are we stoic and unemotional? Mm-hmm. Are we rude and disrespectful?
Yes.
That is something that, is not quite right, and we need to acknowledge it. And why do we need to acknowledge it? Because the first step to even bringing about change in your life is first admitting the existence or the truth of that thing. Gotcha. Right? Mm-hmm. I often used to say, before I, came into relationship with the Lord, if you are out there doing your thing, you're drinking, you're smoking, you're out there, engaging in all kinds of illicit activity, then be honest with yourself. You might not necessarily be an alcoholic, but if you are, admit that to yourself so that you can begin to bring about change. If you find yourself hopping from one relationship to the next relationship to the next relationship, you got to acknowledge that. Mm-hmm. Right? Yes. And not just say, oh, well, I was done with that one, and so now I'm moving on to the next. No, this is a pattern of behavior. And why is this happening? Because all of this defines, it kind of puts together who you are. There's a reason why these things are happening. So I think that's what it is. I think that, acknowledging who you are, really coming into contact with who you are requires humility, and it really requires truth. It requires you to be honest with yourself. Gotcha. Not just about the things that you're good at, but the things that you're not so good at.
That's awesome. So that leads me into my next question. So we're going to talk about the Yes You Can, Believe in Yourself, which is the book that will help you to achieve emotional wellness. And so this is an anthology that you, co-wrote. And so my question is, because one of the things you mentioned is your chapter is entitled "Take the Mask Off, Be the Authentic You," which encourages readers to identify the purpose of, explore the misconception of, and prepare to remove the metaphoric mask that they have worn throughout their life's journey, ultimately leading them to find their authentic self. Right. So when we talk about acknowledging, what made you, when you talk about taking the mask off, and oftentimes, I had to do that when I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. I would just cover up that there was something going on with me. Right. Oh, I'm just, maybe that food it didn't sit well with me. I'm gonna stop eating that. So I did a food elimination. I started doing food elimination. I started doing these diets. But as the weight was falling off, I was like, okay, there's something going on here. But it was so hard for me to accept this diagnosis because I didn't want to be on medication. But because I wasn't, you know, it was pride, right? It was like I don't want to be on medication. I don't want to take this. So it came down to the wire where you have no choice. You have a choice. You either don't take it, you die, or you take it and you live, right? So it was at that moment where I had to acknowledge that there's something going on here. I really need to get clear on who I am right now. Like, I can't be the superhero for everybody anymore. I got to take time out for me, and I got to love on me a little bit more because I've neglected myself so that I'm here ill. Right. So I talked about this in the first half. Like, we have to get to the point to where we are, like you said, Donna, acknowledge it, acknowledge what it is, look at it for what it is. But to truly love yourself, there's going to be, like you say, take the mask off. We got to peel back some layers. Right. We're going to have to peel back some layers and really look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, I'm dealing with this, but I'm no longer going to bring what happened in the past. I got to acknowledge and deal with this. And I'm going to love myself as I'm doing this. But have you ever had someone ask you during your coaching, well, how do I love myself more?
Absolutely. Because, you know, I've had that. I think that's like the primary question, because a lot of people have convinced themselves that they love themselves. Why? Because they just went out and bought a $1,200 purse, or, you know, they just treated themselves to a new car for their, 35th birthday, or, they just went out and got another promotion on the job. So a lot of people have equated love to exterior things, my accomplishments, my assets, the circle of influence that I'm involved in. And that is not love. Those are superficial things that can go away in an instant. But the love that you have for yourself remains, and it stands the test of time, right? So oftentimes when this question does come up, we start with the acknowledgement, really acknowledging who you are, because when you can really safely say, okay, these are the things that I do well. These are the things that the character traits that I possess that are positive, that make people feel good. And then these are the character traits that don't necessarily make people feel good, make me feel good. And they often find me in situations that I sometimes cannot get out of. The next step is to find yourself accepting who you are. That's the next step. Understanding that we're accepting who we are, not because we want, those areas that need growth to remain that way. No, we're accepting who we are in our current state and saying, okay, I'm under construction. I'm still a work in progress. And with each and every day that I am blessed with, I have the opportunity to work on these areas that need to be strengthened, that need to be built up, that need to be corrected. And then from there, we go through an approval process. We go through times of appreciation, and then, of course, affirmation. So it really is a process. This self-love journey is not something that's going to happen overnight. It is, as I said, it is a journey. It's not a destination. You don't just arrive there tomorrow and then you're there. It's something that you have to do, wake up consciously and do every single day, every moment of the day.
Gotcha.
And, so it, through our discussions, through the master classes, through my individual coaching sessions, or even my organizational coaching sessions, we go through the process, this 5-step process, and each individual working individually or sometimes in teams kind of helps to pull this stuff up to the surface and then eventually release, and we move through the other phases of acceptance, approval, appreciation, and affirmation.
Okay. Now that was good. So let me ask you this question about, the publishing. This is your second anthology, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So tell me, how do you believe your book will transform the reader?
Well, this particular book, Yes, You Can, Believe in Yourself, in the chapter that I wrote, which was Take the Mask Off and Be the Authentic Self, I believe is literally transforming people even now as I speak. Why? Because so often when we leave our homes, we put on this mask, to hide our true identity, because we do not want people to know that we're wrestling with this depression, or wrestling with an eating disorder, or wrestling with oppression, or that we're being physically and verbally abused, or that we are a product of incest, or that we are a product of child molestation. So we put on this mask. We primp and we do a lot of pomp and circumstance, and we put on these masks. Mm-hmm. Women whose spouses have a whole nother family on the other side of town, but yet and still, they walk into places of worship and it's praise the Lord. Yes, there is a praise for the Lord, but really and truly, you're hurting inside. But I can't show everybody that, because is everyone going to be able to accept that about me? Mm-hmm. Or are they going to judge me? Are they going to criticize me? So ultimately, with this chapter, what I do is walk the reader through the steps to actually remove the mask and come into full understanding of who they are, to connect with who they are, and not be ashamed of their story, to not be ashamed of their testimony, because their testimony, believe it or not, their story, their journey is what someone else is going through and needs.
Yes.
But if we all walk around with a mask on, who is getting the help? Who is getting the instruction? Who is getting the guidance for the situation that they're currently going through? So it's so vitally important. I believe, my mom always used to say, my goodness, from the time I was a little girl, you just tell everybody everything about you. I do, because there is someone that is going through what I'm going through right now.
Yes.
And it's my story of overcoming. It's my story of victory can positively impact and bring about change and transformation in someone else's life, then I believe I've done my job. So taking the mask off and being the authentic you is not just about your own personal healing and deliverance and coming into the acknowledgement and the acceptance of who you are, but it's also about all of the people that you are called to. That might be one person. Yes. It might be 1 million people. But when you take your mask off and you begin to live authentically and you begin to walk in victory and walk in full transformation, you are positively impacting the lives of people that you are coming in contact with. And women, men, boys, girls watching you say, wow, if that individual made it through, then I can make it through. That's so it gives people hope. It gives them the courage to move forward in their journey.
That's awesome. That's amazing. So that is, so I'm going to jump into the next question, but that confirms what I was saying earlier in the first half of the show was, they talk about, I was homeless, or I was, I went through this adversity and then boom, I'm a millionaire. Right. But they don't tell you about the part about the valley. The ugly stuff, How did you get through the ugly times, the bankruptcies, the loss in the home, the loss in a job, the diagnosis? What did you do to get through that? That's what the people need to hear.
Yep.
That's what they need. That's the meat of it, right? So my next question is, with this book, has this book what has this book, has your book led you to create other projects like classes or courses?
Absolutely. Right now, on a quarterly basis, I run a class, and we're actually gearing up for our summer session, which starts in June.
Okay.
It's called the Love Me First Master Class.
Gotcha.
So that Love Me First Master Class runs each Saturday in June. So June 5th, June 12th, June 19th, and June 26th from 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, just an hour. But we get so much done in that hour. And it is a 4-week virtual master class where we actually, go through and we take a look at our mindset.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about barriers to building positive relationships. We talk about those toxic people, situations, and thoughts that we need to release. And then ultimately we conclude the 4-week master class by learning how to love ourselves unconditionally and unapologetically.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a class that I'm running right now. In addition to that, I do individual coaching along those same lines. We just go a little bit deeper because we have more time to spend. So we go a little bit deeper, and we're able to, just really hone in on those things that have been an obstacle, a hindrance to your self-love journey. I've also had the opportunity to facilitate organizational trainings on the other side of the world, right? Individuals, or organizations from Europe have reached out and asked me to actually do a training with regards to learning how to love themselves. Because ultimately, Stephanie, you talk about business, that is your mountain that you have, possessed. And so for me, it's the field of education. For 27 years, I've also been serving as an educator. And whether you're an educator, whether you're a business owner, whether you are a CEO, whether you are a doctor, a nurse, whatever the case may be, in order for you to do what it is that you've been called to do, you have to love yourself. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. And people are saying, how? I don't need to love me to operate on someone. Well, can you imagine if you did? If you love yourself, that means that when you go into that operating room every single time as that surgeon, you are caring for that body in the same way that you would care for yourself. Teachers going into the classroom. When you love yourself, you can honor the students that sit before you. You respect them. You don't find yourself speaking carelessly and frivolously into their lives, but you speak to them from the lens of love. As a business owner, you're not just there as a taskmaster, work. You actually walk into your office building or into your organization with the love on your mind for the people that you have employed. Why? Because you love yourself. And so if you honor yourself, if you're kind to yourself, if you are one who does not, record wrongdoing and walk in unforgiveness, then this is the same thing that you should be able to extend towards the people that you employ. So I just believe that self-love, whether we know it or not, it impacts everything else that we do.
Yes.
And so this is why, and I've even had these conversations, and I'm going to go there. I've had these conversations with my husband, even in some of our police forces. We're seeing some of the things that we're seeing because people are not officiating. They're not serving from the lens of love. Mm-hmm. They're not. And so if I can't be kind to myself, then I'm definitely not going to be kind to you. If I am not forgiving of myself, I definitely can't be forgiving towards you.
Right.
And so, so these are just, some of the things that my classes dig deep into and really, really help people to understand that this is not just about you, but it's also about the lives that you impact when you go to church, when you go to work, in your family, your extended family, on your street.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that was really good. So tell the audience how they can purchase a copy of your Yes You Can, Believe in Yourself book?
Oh, that's awesome. So there are two ways that you can actually purchase the book. You can go to my website, which is www.donnalindsey.com, or you can go over to linktr.ee/Donna Lindsey.
Okay. All righty. And so before we, first I want to thank you, Donna, for taking the time to come on the show this morning and to, give your knowledge on self-love, like the importance of it. Like it's so important that we self-love, self-care, it all stems to loving yourself. Like at the end of the day, you got to love yourself enough to do this very thing, to take care of yourself, take the time out to love yourself more by, like I said, relaxing, knowing how to relax. I think we, like you said, when we go outside, we put on this mask and we're doing all these different things. We're wearing all these different hats and masks that we lose ourselves. We forget about us. So can you give us 3 tips? Give the audience 3 tips. I always like to give 3 business tips, but we're going to give 3 self-love, self-care tips this week. Give us 3 tips that the audience can use and take back to apply to their life.
Awesome. Sure. I call it the 3 Ds. So it's decision, discipline, and definition. So the first thing that you would need to do is make a decision to walk in self-love. It starts in your mind. So you ultimately have to move from having a fixed mindset, which has had you going down the way that you've been going, and now moving to a growth mindset where you are now looking at embracing change, getting ready for the challenge of walking in self-love, looking for new ideas to express love toward yourself. And this, of course, is a decision that can't be based on what someone else wants for you. This is a decision that you need to make for you. The next step would be, or the next takeaway would be discipline, right? In order to walk in self-love, you must consider it a discipline. You have to, live with intentionality. You're walking out each and every day with intention. You are choosing to be consistent, and you are determined. People are going to complain. What is it that you're doing today? You're just so selfish. Why are you so focused on yourself? Kids will come to distract, work will come to distract, different things will come, but you have to be disciplined. You have to be intentional. You have to be consistent and determined to show love every day. And then lastly is definition. What does self-love look like to you? You have to define that, right? Sometimes we get stuck at the self-care level and we don't move deeper. Self-love requires deeper depth. It requires deeper digging, right? It goes beyond the nails and the hair and the bubble bath. That's superficial. They're good, but it's the top layer, right? Self-love is a 3-part function. So when we're defining our self-love journey and what that is going to look like, we got to look body, soul, and spirit. Body is the self-care piece, but soul is your mind, your will, and your emotions. What are you doing to demonstrate self-love towards your mind? What are you reading? What are you listening to? What are you watching? What are you doing to show your decisions love, right? That is your will are your choices. What are you doing to show love towards those choices that you're making? Are you making choices that are going to ultimately benefit you, or are you making choices that are going to sabotage you? And then the area that a lot of people I find stay away from is your emotions. How are you demonstrating love towards your emotions? If you've been through trauma, if you've been through hurt, if you've been through pain, are you getting the counseling? Are you getting the therapy? Are you journaling? Are you letting go? Have you identified what your triggers are? And then, of course, spirit. How are you demonstrating love towards your spirit, your inner man? Are you praying? Are you meditating? Are you using affirmations? So those are the 3 takeaways that I would like to leave with the audience, that your self-love journey, number 1, is a decision. It does require discipline, and it must be clearly defined so that you can walk it out with consistency and fidelity.
Well, let me tell you, these are been some really good tips, Donna. I mean, you hit it on the head. You have to make a decision, You have to be disciplined, and you have to define it, right? So I just want to thank you for coming on the show, because these are some tips that people really need to think about. We really need to think about it when it comes to our self-love. I want to give a shout out to our online listeners, Facebook Live, powerplugradio.com, Twitter, YouTube, Apple, and Google apps. And Donna, you have to come back. You definitely got to come back, because this is really like, we needed this today. I felt like this week was a week of, we need to, really hone in on self-love, self-care, and, just be good to ourselves. So we're at the point where I talk about those ships, and, no matter what journey you go on, you're going to venture out and you're going to come across many ships. Some of those ships are going to be relationships, partnerships, entrepreneurship, companionship, friendships. But whatever ship you choose, you want to make sure that your ship is solid. What I mean by solid, for the purposes of this episode, I mean that you need to make sure that let's take more care of ourselves. Because if you're not together mentally, mind, body, and spirit, how can you be anything to anybody else in your business? It's going to show up on the business side. And so you want to make sure that there's no holes in what you bring to the table, your self-love, your self-care, that those are solid, right? And so without any, being coached or coerced to do something that you really don't want to do, and you don't understand where you are, so be solid, to be solid. You got to acknowledge who you are and where you are. So we got to get out of here without, we're running out of time. But this has been good. Thank you, Donna, so very much for coming on the show today. And we appreciate you. And this has been the Jumpstart Your Business with Stephanie A. Wynn. I am your host. Until next time, we will see you next week.
You're listening to Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jams.